top of my table legs, it needs a dovetail, and you can do this. A lot of guys that do hand-cut dovetails actually just use a router. What I found works pretty quickly, as long as everybody's awake and you can make a bunch of noise, is a mortising chisel. So as you can see, it's quite a bit thicker than the average chisel. And so what you do is you get your bigger mallet or a heavy, that one's not heavy enough, but you can do fine work with it, little taps. You can still use the mortising chisel when you get over here to the end, turn the bevel away from it so you can kind of undercut it and work on that line. But when you're out here, feel free to go ahead and blast it, and then you just use this and it leverages the waste out, as you can see all my chips. So that's what's going on. It's the fastest way I figured out to do it, is this combination right here. Okay, so just a close-up of what this looks like. I took the mortising chisel and went this direction with it and chopped out the fibers, because I had already sawed the edges. And so when you saw the edges, the pieces, the chips can eject. So you start here and you pop them out when this is laying down. Now that I have it upright, I'm mostly using a 1/4 inch standard chisel. This is a footprint from Sheffield, England. Nice sturdy chisel with the synthetic handle plastic. And so that's kind of my primary workhorse. I come in here and then I chop out the fibers. And then I have some other chisels that I picked up on eBay. These are Greenlee chisels. They're vintage, I believe. And they have this very thin edge. And so I've been using those to get into these triangular corners. Because I can come right in. Let's see. I can come right in, and because of that thin edge right here, I can get right up to the corner and establish that cleanly. And same thing, I can go in the other direction, and I don't have to worry about the shoulder, this area here, or this area here, getting damaged by a standard chisel that has this big edge here, this bevel. So as you can see, that would, it's like putting a square into a triangular hole. So anyways, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to try and get some live action shots. This is the last one of 4 that I'm going to do. And I have another set of tables to build, but I might try something a little different and see how I like it. Okay, so as I said in the intro, at least to this thing, this particular video, I use a 1/4 inch chisel as kind of my workhorse. It's small enough to where I can kind of get into the corners, and it's tough enough I can get into the edges and I can pry stuff out. By comparison, you'll see how thin my Dovetail chisel is here. It's more likely to bend, and I need to be cognizant of that you want something sturdy going in there.
There goes nothing. All right, so this is affectionately known in the woodworking community as hogging something out. You take your waste wood, knock it out of the way, you use a chisel that's sturdy enough to where it's sharp. You can cut it, I do a lot of prying when I do this. That's not good for the chisel edge, but it's not the fanciest process here. All the precision really comes with the marking. And then, with experience, you kind of learn when you can really blast something to get the stuff out, and when you have to be more delicate. I can pull it out and I can chop down on these pieces, but that's what I'm saying. If you've got something sharp enough to pry with, you can kind of leverage the fibers out of the mortise here, or what you're cutting out. So I mark these with blue tape, but I kind of eyeballed them a little bit. And the problem with that is I didn't get perfect alignment. These are tables that I messed up, and so I make an extra set of legs for tabletops that I have, so they're about a 1/4 inch shorter on every side, and 3/8 than the first set I produced with this shaker style design. So let's see, I'm going to go with a bigger chisel here, and chop that. I'm going to take it straight out. I don't want to wiggle it or twist it or pry it, because it'll put too much force. Last thing I want to do is just kind of break off the side. I mean, I can glue it back on, but it'll just be a waste of time. So, as you can see, it's starting to look like a dovetail mortise, a little bit more with some of the shaggy stuff out of the way. And then you can, what you want to do is when you're going with the fibers, you want to shave it back as much as possible, or trim back as much of the waste, because because the waste creates resistance. And what you don't want is to have enough pushback, so if I'm coming down and trying to cut this out straight down, you can see my line here. So if I'm coming straight down, I'm trying to, last thing I want is to have the chisel wander and start going this way, because there's too much stuff still hanging on to the side. What you want to do when you're going down with these fibers is have it be as thin a cut as possible to reduce that resistance and that tendency to wander. So, and then a 1/4 inch chisel actually for chopping this out. If you angle it, so I take the top and I twist it towards camera here, so that I take the top into that way. A chisel, a 1/4 inch chisel, is just trying to chop out less stuff. And when you do that, it's a little more accurate, it's a little easier to manage, it's just less wear and tear on your hands and wrists too. As you can see, if I go in there and use the bevel, try not to pry too much against the side, that's why you want a tough chisel. I'm trying never to use or move so much wood that I'm going to bend this chisel. I'll twist it, but I won't try and do a straight pry, because if I can't twist it with just my small muscles in my wrist, I don't want to lever it and have the whole thing just turn into a rainbow over here, just bend completely out of shape. So here's where the fancy new, well actually, I'm going to use just my regular 1/2 inch chisel, my footprint. Alright, I'm going to position it away from the line and try and just tap down and get a nice vertical situation set up so I've got a nice clean edge. I might pare that back a little bit. So, yeah, I've seen even guys that are doing hand-cut dovetails for this situation, if you've got expensive wood, or you got to do a bunch of them, they'll put this into a jig, they'll stabilize it, and then they'll put a power router on top to just carve out this to the right depth. It would take me longer to set up a jig and do all that. I mean, I have it then, but I'm going to start going with a little bit bigger legs and a more rectangular designs for end tables, because these shaper tables, I could ship them. I don't mind making them, but I don't think I'm in the right market. And so as far as buyers go, I've enjoyed the learning experience, but I'm ready to just make kind of a little bit bigger piece of furniture out of different woods. Ash is a challenge, as you can see on these chips. Ash does what's called a celery break, and you'll see this piece right here. It goes, the lighter colored wood is hard, that brown stuff is pretty soft, and it's hard again. So that's the challenge of ash, is you can get into a channel of the soft stuff if the grain is wandering. I mean, if the grain is straight, and that's what you want for table legs anyways, a straight grain. But I've had moments where I'm trying to chop something out in ash, and if you accidentally get into one of those soft parts of the wood, it will just carry your chisel along the grain lines, and it can potentially ruin your cut, make it very inaccurate. So, I'll just use my paintbrush or something for sweeping out the mortise. I've got a little hand vacuum that runs with my rigid power tools that are registered for life through Home Depot. That's one thing I like, is the batteries. They will protect the batteries, and so I need to get my little hand vacuum down here, because I had the same issue working on a lathe. When you hollow out a bowl, you end up with so much stuff that you kind of just have to stop and clean. The hand plane, you can kind of flip it to the side, but here you need to get into a very enclosed space. So let's see, I think I go in with my triangular chisel here. Just doing this by hand, I'm not using a mallet. And so, like I said, this has a super narrow bevel here. So I'll go right into that corner, and the other side will go into that corner very easily and very cleanly. I found these on eBay. It was a vintage set, but they were so clean that they didn't look real. But it was a bargain. They are exactly what you need for doing at least finer dovetail work. It's a nice grind that it came with. I'm a fan of steel from Sheffield. They have a reputation for making good steel. They feel a little bit thin. I mean, they're delicate, but not so delicate I can't use them. But just tapping them gently with a wood hammer and using it, keep them nice and sharp. I'm going to have to kind of be careful with them. I would say baby them. But I do like to take care of my tools anyways to make sure they're fighting shape. Do a little pairing here. Yeah. So maybe my final cut into the corner with my beveled chisel. So there we go. I'm going to try and just tip this stuff over. And it's coming away pretty cleanly now. It gets a little bit easier as the shape gets more defined. So what I don't have is a skew chisel, or a fishtail chisel, to go in that corner. And the 1/8 chisel is kind of handy for that. And I might have a skewed carving chisel laying around I could try. Honestly, I go in with my 1/4 inch chisel and just twist it around and scratch it out. But that is using hand tools. That's about what it takes. So, if you don't have $60 to go online or go to eBay and get some chisels with this beveled edge, you can be careful. I mean, you can sit out there with the right rock, and what you can do is just grind some cheap chisels until you get that profile where you're looking at it, where it's got an angled shoulder on both sides instead of that. You can see how square that is. That's one reason I like this guy. I mean, it's very sturdy for a 1/4 inch chisel. I mean, not only is, I feel it's pretty good steel. I mean, I'm sure there's better steel out there. If we start talking about deluxe Canadian woodworking tools, there's some pretty amazing steel. But as far as kind of going in there, beating up a joint to make it work, I'll take this out and I'll lay it down and then I'll chop this back a little bit because that's end grain and that's tough. And I want it to be fairly accurate. But yeah, as far as just hogging out something like this, this guy's pretty good. I can just go in there and kind of separate the fibers, pry them apart, and then I can just come back and twist them around. The other thing you could experiment with if you're handy and you're on a tight budget is to make like I mentioned, a skew chisel, and that's where you end up with a chisel that has an angle. So you'll have a blade, but rather than having it straight, it'll be angled this way, and then you could go in here and you would have this corner wouldn't get in the way. You would have a chisel that matches the kind of insertion angle. So you'd have something that matches the dovetail. And you could go in there, and then you'd have another chisel that would be angled the other way, and you could get in the other pocket. But that is it. Yeah, it's pretty close. Let's press it down just a little bit. So, yeah, but that's at least most of that dovetail mortise. All right, just for giggles, let's see how close that is. I will show you this. One thing that helps, along with cutting these square, is to chamfer this. Because wood will compress. Obviously, the harder the wood is, the less it wants to compress. But you will get some compression. And then I'm cutting with the grain here. Or at least if you go this way, you'll split off a bunch. You go this way, it's fairly predictable. And so I'm just going to set this in here and see if it's marked anywhere close. It's pretty tight. So, yep, pretty close in business. So just got to do a little finessing on the edges, widen this out a little bit. I'll eyeball it from above. And then I'll go from there.